I grew up in Plantation, Florida. I went to Plantation High School. My father was an airline captain with the Eastern Airlines, which doesn't exist anymore. So I had the benefit of doing some travel while I was growing up. And that gave me a perspective of some of the things that I wanted to do. And that probably was unusual for a young woman my age. So I was one of very few women that were in the business school pursuing a business degree. I was very involved with making sure I got my grades my freshman year. And I actually did not go through rush, or what they call recruitment, until my sophomore year. And I then pledged Tri Delta. So shortly after pledging, then I was asked, because I had a business background and I was studying business, there was a need for someone to be the treasurer. That was probably my first leadership role, where I actually had to convince people to do things like pay their bills in a timely manner. And this was for 80 young women that not always were familiar with how to handle financial responsibilities until they got to college. So I graduated in 1976, and if you had told me when I pulled out of Tallahassee with my Camaro and all my worldly belongings in my U-Haul that I would want to come back to Tallahassee and live at some point in time, I would have told you you were out of your mind. And I was moving to Atlanta, Georgia. My first job, I was recruited for the management training program at Trust Company Bank. I left Trust Company Bank and took a job with a company called Continental Telecom. They had a leasing subsidiary, and I was involved with providing lease financing for telephone systems. When I left Contel, I went to work for a company called Bankers Trust of New York. So I worked for Bankers Trust until I was recruited to go to work for Citibank, which I did for about 10 years. In 1992, I went to work for Bank South. So I worked with that team until 2002, and Mark, my husband, retired, and we decided to move to Tallahassee. I came down to look for property in Tallahassee and asked a friend of mine to refer a realtor, and that realtor went home and said to her husband, guess who's moving from Atlanta to Tallahassee? Well, that gentleman happened to be the president of a bank called First South Bank, who had just announced they were selling to BB&T. So they needed to find some commercial lenders who knew Tallahassee. Bill Mattice hired me to be the first city president for BB&T in Florida. The significant thing about that is that was BB&T's first step into Florida. Throughout my career, I have always enjoyed identifying high potential people, helping them develop their skills, and then helping them to get the experiences that they need so that when the opportunity comes, they're ready. As a result of that, I have people who I have mentored over the years, as much as 20 years ago, still call me and say, can you talk to me about this? Can I bounce this off of you? And to me, that's success. The advice that I would give a young woman coming out of school right now is be professional, be true to yourself. You need to make sure that you are bringing value, and you need to make sure that you're giving back. I would also encourage everybody to find a partner who supports you and recognizes, your value. A lot of universities will tell you how great they are, and students tell me that they are convinced how great they will be as a result of their experience at FSU. It's a little bit different. I cannot tell you how many people that I know that are FSU graduates who would kill to come back and be involved with the university. And it's because of the experience they had when they were here. I think the biggest statement of my success is the success of the people that have worked with me on my teams. That's the greatest statement of success. I've worked with some amazing people, and so proud to know it.